So I've come over today because another plot holder is actually recovering their polytunnel. It was a normal standard polytunnel that you buy, for a few bucks, but the green plastic on it was actually all breaking away, and he's just taken on that plot. So he thought, let's try and recover it, and we'll reinforce the structure that's already there. And by putting on a first tunnels cover as well. So went over, we measured up the polytunnel for the cover he needs. I'm probably going to show that in a video in the future of how we recovered it and how we reinforced it and built the doors and things. But it's not a first tunnels frame, it's a normal green polytunnel, but we're going to do our best on that and really make it a sturdy structure. So that's been done today. And also I've come over because last year I sowed my leeks directly in the bed in the polytunnel, and it worked really well. I put them in modules as well, but I found that those ones, they grew so well in the polytunnel, and then all I did then was later on in the season dug them up and planted them outside. So this year I'm doing Bulgarian Giant. I've done those before, and they're not as tall as a Musselburgh, but they're very thick and chunky, and they're just better. I just find them easier, and they're not as tall, but you could chop them up, and there's quite a lot of whiteness to them as well. So I'm also doing Musselburgh as well, which everyone does. So I'm going to do two varieties, and I've also brought some white Lisbon over as well, some spring onions. So I'm going to sow them. So I sowed some, 2 weeks ago and 2 weeks before that, and now it's time again to sow some more. So if you are growing spring onions through the seasons, I tend to do it every 2 weeks. And that seems to do well for me, because by the time they're ready now, in about a month or so's time, I've got more to plant in and so on and so on. So there's always some dotted around the garden. And plus, spring onions, if you've got gaps in the middle of your lettuces, your cabbages, or just little gaps in your beds, chuck a few spring onions in there, and you've always got, a nice supply of them then as well. The ones outside are looking actually really fantastic. The pak choys, sadly they started to bolt outside in the cloches, but some of the mustards and also the spring onions are looking really healthy under there. So taking the cloche off because it's raining, give it a good water. But let's get these leeks in, and I'll show you what I've done underneath the bed. So all I've done is I've wet the compost that's down here now, and I just got a bean cane, and I tend to make a little furrow in the soil, just like so. And another one, maybe 4 inches or so from it. Now, even though I've watered this, you can still see that the compost underneath is quite dry in some places, but I'll water it again in a minute. So I've just made 2 little trenches, about 1 inch deep or so. Now I'm going to do the Musselburgh on this side, and all I do is simply shake the seeds into the trench like so. Same with the Bulgarian Giants. Now you don't have to do it too densely, because you'll have more than enough, but as you know, I do like to share these out as well. They're one of the things that new plot holders that might start the allotment this year will be grateful for. So they're in, and all you do is just pat it over like so. Give it another water, and make sure obviously you label it up. Like so. So I've got myself a 40 cell tray here. It's about 2 inches deep. These are the ones I was talking about earlier from Containerwise. So I get the bunching onions, the white Lisbon, and all I do simply is I just put in there between 5 and 8, seeds in each cell. Just a couple. And then these, like I said, I'll just dot around the garden. They're always handy. There's something that you can never have enough of. You can use them all day long in salads and stir fries and things. So I always make sure I've got plenty of spring onions for the season. Bit of compost on the top then. This is actually beautiful compost as well. I don't know if you've seen, but I recommend, you know, having a good seed compost or a nice fine multi-purpose compost. You will obviously get bits of bark and things in it, but generally you don't want things that are going to suppress the you know, the seeds as well. So give it a label, pop it in and give it a water, and then this will go here then. And then in about a week or so, you'll see life on them as well. And obviously I've got successions of them as well. So I've got some, like I mentioned, outside already. I've got another set then that are going to go in next or planted somewhere else. You know, I'm not saying you pull one out and then put another one in, but there's nothing worse than you want, even through spring and summer, is pulling out a crop and you've got nothing to go back in. So that's why you need to make sure a few weeks, maybe a month or two before, you're sowing something else ready for that bed as well, because you don't want to be using that growing space willy-nilly. You want to be, as soon as it comes out, there's something straight away goes back in that same day, that same hour. So that's why I always make sure I've got at least spring onions and salads and things like that as well ready to go in the beds next. So, you know, for a couple of seeds you may as well sow them anyway. Even if you don't use them, you can always put them in the compost, but with spring onions you'll always have somewhere to put them. So I've catched a bit of bird feed off Linda, save me going to the store because of the weather. Make sure your bird feeders are filled up now. I've noticed the birds are starting to fly down to the bird feeders and the bird table. Nothing there, so they're very disappointed. I've noticed on the trail cam as well, birds are starting to hang around that area. So they're definitely arriving back now. It won't be long before they'll have babies to be fed. So top up your bird feeders now. Make sure the bird tables are all, you know, they're nice and clean for them. So spring is almost here, so make sure your bird feeders are topped up. I've noticed on the trail cam that a lot of birds now are swooping down and getting very disappointed that there's no feed for them. So just ensure that you pop a bit out for the, you know, for wildlife. So they'll be happy with this. Now the good thing about these ones over the others, there is a benefit. A lot of them have got a lot of screws that you need to put in, but I like these ones because they pretty much slot into a lot of teeth. So you only have to put in 2 screws, one at the top, one at the bottom of each panel, which I think is more handier. But I understand with the bigger ones you don't want them to bow out, but with these, because they're circular and they're quite small, they'll hold the compost and soil in anyway. So they're just a bit easier to build as well. So that's another selling point of me buying these ones. So I've kind of done a thing. If you can see, I barked the plot. So I came over this morning, barked all through. I noticed when I drove past last night that there's been a bit of a bark delivery. I've got a few more sacks here now, which I'm going to add through the beds and also in the fruit area. But overall, it's made such an impact now that I'm absolutely thrilled that this plot is barked and it's ready. This part is all ready now. I've just got a few beds to mulch and then I've ticked this job off. It's down to the grapevine then after this one. So I'm absolutely thrilled that the last part of the puzzle here was barking it, so it's done. So I've popped over the lettuces as well. I've got 2 trays of these and they're looking absolutely beautiful, that I've grown indoors with some grow lights. It's not necessary, but I need them for a project later on in the season. So I need them up and ready and looking sturdy, and these are looking beautiful. So they'll stay in the polytunnel now, getting a lot more natural light rather than using grow lights. But I'm pleased with these. These are the oak leaf green, and I also got oak leaf red as well, which are looking just as good. So let's pop in the polytunnel. So it's really nice now to be seeing some greenery in the polytunnel, and I'm absolutely thrilled that these now are, they're up. It just looks like spring already, but it's not spring yet, I promise you. It is not spring, but I've got things that I've done that are a bit hardy, some lettuces, some sweet peas, some mange tout peas that will just slowly trickle on through the season now. But I am over the moon that it's already starting to fill up. A bit of greenery in here, some red onions and shallots, and yeah, it's nice to kickstart the season already. So I've picked up this gnarly looking tree and it was just dumped in the communal area on the allotments. I thought I'll put a little plant pot or something around here so it doesn't damage the bottom of the pond. But I thought this in the pond, I thought the frogs and all might enjoy this in there, and they can just, you know, or maybe even just put it like that, and once things start dropping all over it, it'll be a nice den for the frogs, I think. So I think that's where that's going to go. So sadly, some of the pak choi in here have gone to seed, so they've bolted, which is a shame really, but it was a bit of a gamble. So they'll come out today. So the red ones are looking okay, but the green ones not, so they'll just go into the compost heap. But in between here and now, I'll just plant some lettuces, and yeah, you know, if you don't try these things, you'll never know. So I've decided that these two extra ones I've got, one of them is going to go here. Now, I thought what I'll do is I'll use the spent potato compost in here, like I mentioned earlier, and fill it with the spent compost, and then that'll be perfect for the carrots. So yeah, I don't know whether or not I'm going to fill it up today, or I'm going to have a good sieve through it and add some sand to it as well. So I think I'll pop to the shop at some point this week and grab some sand and just pop it in with the mixture, and then we'll have a nice carrot bin here then as well for spring. That's the plan. And I still need to fill up these two raised beds as well. So I'm having a delivery of well-rotted manure in bag form in the next couple of days. So I'll fill these up with those, I think, and then put a light dressing later on of compost when I'm going to sow into them. But they're on the list as well. But things are ticking on already, and I'm happy with the progress. And Ollie, another plot holder who I've mentioned before, he's getting rid of his potting shed, and I decided that would be perfect for the open potting area that I was going to build anyway. So I'm going to dismantle the shed on his plot, bring it up here, and then rebuild it in a sort of fashion with an open front on it, so I can pot out in the summer, and I think it'll look fantastic as well. So that's going to be kind of exciting for that as well. So one man's junk is another man's treasure. Also, I picked up this trolley base that I might have mentioned as well. Let's go wheels on. It's plastic, and I might just build an actual raised bed on here, and I can actually move it around. So I think the idea of that is there might be a carrot bin, and then what I thought I could do is, because it's on wheels, I thought I can wheel it into the polytunnel at the start of the season to start them off, and then I can wheel it out then as well, and it'll just look like a raised bed, but in fact it's actually going to be on wheels. So am I the first to make a portable mobile carrot bin? Who knows? But that's what I'm thinking for that as well, that it'll be something that I can use in the polytunnel, get it started off because of the heat and warmth and protection, and then wheel it out then, it'll situate somewhere. So that's the plan for that. So stay tuned, because I'm going to be building that in the next couple of weeks. So another project, but I like those funny little quirky things, so we'll see what happens with that. Or if you've got any ideas for this trolley that you think would be beneficial instead of that, pop it in the comments below, because I'll be really interested in some of the ideas you might have for these. But it's just basically a base on wheels, and it's quite sturdy as well, so it's good for carrying things. But at the moment I'm thinking carrot bin, so let me know what you think. I also want to say a huge thank you so much for everyone who subscribes, likes, comments on my videos. So this week I hit 5k subscribers on my channel, so honestly it made my day, and I was absolutely over the moon. I can't believe I've got to 5,000 subscribers. You know, when I started I thought I'll just put a few videos up and hopefully families and friends will watch, and I might get 100 subscribers. But here we are over 2 years later, and we've hit 5k, so thank you so much. The shallots and the garlic and the onions now are looking absolutely amazing in here. They're all coming up and they're all looking fab. So are the daffodils, the spring bulbs, and everything else. I brought it all out, like I said, because it was raining yesterday and it's going to rain tomorrow, so I thought we've got no frost forecast, so it's doing okay. They're having a good natural water, and the same over here, so everything's looking great now. So yeah, it's ticking on. The asparagus, so I've decided that I'm going to give this a quick hoe over, but be careful that I don't hurt any of the asparagus. And then what I thought I'd do is, I thought I'd top dress it with a couple of bags of well-rotted manure as well, because I'm sure that'll do it a good feed. But there is a couple of tiny little weeds in it, nothing major. And then I also want to build the border around it as well, so There's tiny little jobs now as well, but I've still got some alliums that are growing in here, which I've decided that are going to stay there now. And I think the garlic chives just tucked around there, so they'll be added to the herb bed, I think. But yeah, so far so good. So I touched on this as well, but I'll have a look at this even more now. So the roots, for some reason, are coming out of the modules more and more. And I've showed it to like Nigel Muddy Boots, Steve Digwell, and they've never seen it either. So it seems like the roots are coming out and then bed hopping back into the next module, like pirates stealing the nutrients from them. I'm sure that's not the case, but I've also noticed it again here. The shallots are starting to do it, and I don't think it's because it's dry underneath and they're looking for moisture in the air, because these are watered, so I don't understand actually what's going on. But if you see, the roots are coming back out. And it's not like, you know, they're not watered from underneath, because some said, are you watering from top and it's dry underneath and they're coming for the moisture? But they're not. They're watered from underneath. But it's a bit of a mystery for me, like, why are my onions bed hopping? Oh my God, look what I've just found on the plot. I'm absolutely over the moon. Honestly, it's like the best news ever. Let me show you. So I was at the pond area and I started cleaning some of the bits and bobs out of it, and then this was a bit wobbly. And when I lift it over, look what's underneath. There's a tiny little frog. I'm absolutely over the moon. Do you know what I mean? That there's frogs in the pond. So that's a good sign now that things are starting to move into the pond and hopefully frog spawn. So I'm so pleased that this little guy has moved in. Honestly, I'm absolutely over the moon by that. What an absolute find. That's just a good sign that your pond is healthy. You know, he's overwintered now as well, and he decided that that's going to be his home. So I'm very happy about that. I'm also thinking about building maybe a hazelnut fence just across the side of here, and then maybe then I can have something that climbs up there as well. The tulips are in there for now, but once tulips are over with, I might dig those up, and then I'll need something for summer for here. So I'm thinking if I had like a hazelnut little trellis that's handmade, you know, handmade there, and yeah, I think it'll look quite nice. And then maybe I'll have some sweet peas climbing up it, or some mange tools or something. But yeah, that's the plan for here. And that's the thing that I always mention as well, is that don't just be planning for what you're putting in next, plan for the next thing after that and the next thing after that. You always got to be forward thinking in gardening. I'm Danny and this is Grow Up.